Hey, what's going on, everyone? Vega here for SerpentX Tech, and just like in the past, Dynex has caught miners trying to game the system. They're basically submitting or showing a certain hash rate, thus getting paid for the work that they're submitting above what their actual hardware can do. We've seen that before where other users were able to manipulate said miner, but now we're finding out another development, and we need to get Yeti on the horn to get us up to speed. I've seen some screenshots about it, but let's just go over it with you. So I got Yeti on the horn here, and I just wanted to show you this first screenshot. So this first screenshot, what you're looking at here is at the top with around 1,248 chips is the 7900 XTX, and at the bottom is the 3070 Ti with 336 chips. This top number is manipulated, or I guess you could say a fictional number, a fictitious number. Would that be correct, Yeti?
Yeah, it's a more of a what it should have against what actually it is. So what you're seeing there is actually what it should have if it calculated it correctly. What we've since found out is that that's not the actual case.
Right. And then just to show you another screenshot, here's a 3080. It only has 413 chips is what it's calculating out. Now we're looking at SRB multi-miner, which out of all the miners has been the more popular one to go to because it gives you extra hash rate. But there's a reason why it's been giving you extra hash rate. And I have Yeti's image here to break it down, and I'm going to let him take you through that.
Yeah, so let's use that number as the best bit about it, right, from the previous one. So 1248, right?
Right.
That's what it was, right? 1248. Okay. So now if you go back into that picture, right, you can see here that I've actually tried to balance it out a bit so it's nice and easy to understand. So XMM2 is the number of chips, right, that should be created, right? Then you've also got a factorization option, right? So basically, instead of it taking the actual number of chips, it's multiplying it by a factor of 0.54, right? Which actually gives you a chip total of 673, right? Now, this is where it gets a little bit complicated. But basically, the R8 defines the number of chips not being calculated, right? So in essence, there's a number of chips, which is shown on the miner. There is a number of actual chips, and then there's a number of chips left over, right? And if you turn or was to memory manipulate the R8 results, right, and turn that to effectively, 100% left over, so basically a factorization of 100%, you would end up being only doing proof of work, not proof of useful work. Even though you would be registered on the network, it would show your number of chips. Those chips wouldn't be able to initialize if you went over the factorization too much, or it would start kicking in some of Dynex's security measures. But what we found is, as long as you don't push it too hard, it's very difficult for the system to realize it's being manipulated. And unfortunately, what it's done is, because he's using an arbitrary variable to store this, factorization, you can actually target that and modify it.
Right. And we've seen this before.
Yes.
And then security measures were implemented, and now we're seeing it again, and additional security measures have been implemented.
Correct.
And on this screenshot, this is a 4090.
Yes.
1172 chips reported,
yeah,
but only 480 are actually processed.
Yeah.
So I'm getting...
Now, I believe the factorization on the AMD side is nowhere near as brutal as it is on the Nvidia side, and that's probably because of the double precision.
Right.
So what I found is that SRB actually runs, obviously, multiple kernels, right, for Nvidia and AMD respectively, right? So what we end up with is that there's two separate kernels. One, which obviously you've seen yourself in that photo, is off of that is the AMD side. And then the other one that you just showed is obviously from the Nvidia side, right? So we've got both sides of the equation.
Right.
Both do the same. Both can be manipulated in exactly the same way. And what you're seeing there is in effect server-side logs that allow me to check what the step count is, or the integration steps that are being done on the sat solvers and machine learning, so you can validate if the data is correct. And I wasn't even looking for this at the time. I was doing some testing for them on something completely
different,
completely different. But what I found is, if you go back to the other page, you'll see, right? Do you see where those top two arrows are, right? Underneath it, all the variables are 0. Right. For any machine learning and sat solving, there should never be a 0. 0 means invalid data. And you can clearly see that there's no proof of useful work being sent, or it's being sent, but it's all blank. In which case, then it turns out to be invalid, and the system says, "Oh, give us another miner," and then we go round and round and round until we figure out that there's a problem, and then it drops that and brings on a different miner.
But the problem, the plain and simple explanation is SRBminer is manipulating.
Yeah, it seems to be the sat solver where he found most of his benefits was in the sat solving side, not
which is
machine
proof
learning.
of work. Let me explain that real quick. So sat solving, when he says sat solving, that's the proof of work side. And when he says, what was the other one?
Well, no, sat solving is technically the proof of useful work as well. It's just a different type of
proof of useful work.
Yeah, it's a different type, as it were. So think of it like a sat solving is down to one solution, right? One miner is going to find that solution and bam, it's solved.
Submit.
Machine learning, obviously, that's streaming data back, and it might take 5 minutes to collect all that data, whereas a sat solver might take years potentially, depending on how complicated the equations are.
Yeah. Okay. So the proof of in the past, what was happening is people were manipulating it at the memory level or the registry level, and they were submitting nothing but proof of work. They weren't even working on proof of useful work. Is that the case here?
Yeah, pretty much is what I'm looking at right now. Again, is
that's why all of these are 0.
Yeah, it's slightly different than last time, because last time we were seeing clear rejection connections to the POUW, right? This technically still does actually connect to POUW. It just has no resources effectively to be able to do that. Because if you start manipulating that R8 variable, you can basically increase your hash rate exponentially.
And again,
just changing the factorization.
The security measures are in place now. So us showing this to the community, somebody isn't going to be able to take this and run with it, right?
Correct. Obviously, 2.3.9 is still slightly susceptible to other forms of memory manipulation at the moment. Obviously, I can't go into too much detail about those until they're obviously patched. Actually, it wasn't just one thing we found. We found a couple of things that we're now running out some changes for. Obviously, I do this in my spare time to lend a hand. I'm there to be their bit of advice when it comes to security. And when I noticed something odd, obviously I reached out to the team and they were like, actually, this doesn't look right. So we dug a little deeper.
Okay. And so just for the sake of time, you found this, I guess you could say, I don't think I want to call it an exploit, but you found this manipulation measure not only in
Correct.
the latest version of SRBminer, but in previous versions as well, correct?
Yeah, obviously the other miner versions have now been discontinued off of Dynex's network,
Right.
right? That's why the mandatory update's 2.3.9. Um, unfortunately, it does look like there was the last couple of versions, so 9, 8, and 7
Right.
have all the same factorization. Now, I could probably go back further and find out when he started actually doing this. It might be from day one, to, you know, help with refinements, to optimize code. And he might at first have just had it there as a help to himself, right? To be able to push cards harder, to figure out different methodologies and optimizations, right?
Mhm.
Because as long as he's on a test net, then doing that kind of manipulation and checking is not a bad thing, right? To make sure your software is safe and secure. So I do get that you know, he probably put this in originally unintentionally, and then my worry is that maybe he realized that he could get away with it and just pushed his luck more and more and more.
So Dr. 83, who's only 3 years older than me, he's in our same age group,
Yep.
is a mining developer. He's been developing SRBminer for years. And first off, you know, thank you for what you've done for the crypto mining community. Unfortunately, if you were doing this intentionally, that was silly of you when you know that the community will always work with you and always try to help you out. But
Yeah,
you know,
my biggest problem is that he said it was a mistake, right?
right,
One version is a mistake. Multiple versions seems a little bit off to me
right.
personally.
And especially knowing that we just talked about this not too long ago, right? The
Correct.
whole mine something adventure, doing
Yeah.
further research, identifying how people were able to trick their hash rate. Because if this increased hash, right, means that you're getting paid extra for work that you're not really completing, or it's like basically getting extra credit for not doing anything in school, just to bring it down to as basic as possible, right? You're getting extra credit or you're getting paid extra money to not do the actual work. That's unfair for the people that are actually doing the work. So security measures are implemented. I believe we're just gonna have to watch. I don't want Yeti to go too deep into it. We're just gonna have to watch and pay attention to what Dynex says. If there is an announcement or anything like that,
There was an announcement this morning
there
around,
was.
about the whole SRB situation. They actually went quite in depth about it. So yeah, that's
Here it is. I
something.
see it. I see it. So yeah, I'll link this announcement from Twitter down in the description. But long story short, what it seems like to me, and Yeti, correct me if I'm wrong, but SRBminer is no longer going to be able to mine Dynex. Like it can still mine other cryptocurrencies, but as far as Dynex is concerned, in the future, and this may take a progressive step, you know, an over time situation. But you won't be able to mine Dynex on SRB anymore. So you might want to switch your miners in the future. But I would urge you to pay attention to the Dynex Twitter, their Discord, and then monitor the situation. Keep up to this channel, subscribe, and hit the bell to keep up to date. But SRBminer is no longer going to be able to mine Dynex in the future. Would that be a correct assumption?
Yeah, correct. They're going to phase it out. Obviously, they've got some new miners in the works. When their new Mallob behind Stratum launches. So obviously that's going to make a huge difference because there'll be actually more choice. There'll be multiple AMD supported miners. There's going to be multiple Nvidia miners as well now going forward. So it won't be this worry every time that one miner has an issue and suddenly it affects, you know, half their network.
Right. I mean, honestly, a lot of people went to SRBminer because it did provide an increased hash rate over the other options. Also, you know, compared to some of the other options out there, not all miners support AMD and Nvidia, right? So you
Correct.
got 1.0 miner and you got a couple others, and I don't want to name any other miners, right? You'll again keep up to Dynex and keep an eye on what's going on. Check out their Twitter and their socials. But there's other miners out there, and there's a possibility of future miners coming in the works, and we'll see how that goes. But just to break it down from a mathematical perspective, Yeti calculated this is the dev fee, right? So the dev fee, if we go to SRBminer, is 2%, right?
Yep.
2%. The SRBminer dev was basically earning around $8 every 30 minutes, or close to $400,000 every day.
That's 407. Sorry, that's my export. It's 407.04 Dynex a day.
Okay, so he's making $400, almost $400 a day, not 400,000. Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
So
that's still a hell of a payday.
Still, I mean, yeah. For not you did do something. The dev created the miner so that way, users like myself can participate. And that's one of the reasons why I support my mining developers and I appreciate them. It just, if you're going to take advantage of a situation or a particular project, then especially when they have the resources to find out, you're doing it wrong. You probably might want to work with that project or that cryptocurrency. And again, I don't know Dr. 83 personally. I know they've been around for a minute, and I appreciate what they've done. Unfortunately, it looks like their miner won't be able to mine Dynex, so I would suggest upgrading. The same manipulation tactic, not the same manipulation exploit, but tactic has been exposed, but this time it looks like it was kind of built in on purpose into the miner. Now, if Doctor wants to come on the channel and talk and kind of give their side of the story, we'll be more than welcome to provide an objective area in which they can. But as Yeti said, fool me once, okay, fool me twice, fool me 3 times. All right, now you're looking kind of sus. So we'll see. I didn't want to give the whole President Bush meme joke thing there, but you know what I mean. So long story short, SRBminer had the elements within it to allow manipulation, thus allowing people to have extra hash rate. And then not only the dev reap the rewards, but the end user reap a little bit of it, right? Because it's not a huge manipulation. We're not talking about, you're making 10x Dynex, which you would have if you were with other miners. But it is an incremental bump over some of the other options out there. So we'll see how things pan out. Just be ready to upgrade your miners off of SRBminer, as it will no longer be supported in the future. And, this is a constantly evolving situation with Dynex. We just dealt with this, 2-3 months ago with a different memory leak exploit, right?
Yep. Yes, we did.
So any last minute words you want to say before I wrap up?
I mean, this was bound to happen, right? You get that many GPU miners on a network. They're going to try and find ways to, optimize their networks and farms for the most amount of coin, right?
Right.
But obviously there has to be a certain level of responsibility on the shoulders of the miner devs to actually make sure their software is sensibly coded, shall we say, and secure, to the point where memory manipulation, even if it's done, should be rejected inside of the software. Right, there's anti-cheat engines, right, like in games these days, right? Same principle. It's looking for memory manipulation and then rejecting it or kicking you out of the game. Well, why is there nothing like that in here that says, oh, you're not getting your hash rate you should be, and it's massively over what it should be, therefore you must be manipulating the memory values, and to then go ahead and kick the miner out and restart it and just keep doing it, or reject it to even start.
I think that would be a very good item to add, but will the miner devs actually implement it? I would wager probably not, but I that would be awesome to have built into the miner itself.
Absolutely.
But I mean that's where the miner dev works with the project developers, right? And that's been an ongoing thing, not just with Dynex, but with Caspa and Nexa and so many other coins, right? When you develop a miner, that miner dev should be working with the project, contributors or engineers or whoever to resolve the issue. And if there is a mistake, yeah, fix the mistake and keep it moving. But when the mistakes keeps repeating, and then you find evidence of that history of, like, I'm just gonna put this here, maybe nobody will find it. Oh, I'm gonna do this on the next version. Oh, I'm gonna do this again on the next version. Then it's kind of like, all right, dude, well, you kind of pushing the boundaries here, and we're gonna have to do something. So unfortunate, but I leave it to the Dynex team. And again, I just want to stress that Yeti does not work for Dynex. He doesn't work under Dynex. He works with Dynex. He's just doing this on his free time. He has his own business and own everything going on. And I just appreciate his knowledge and his expertise. And we worked hand in hand together on Yeti.uk. If you haven't checked that out, that is y3ti.uk. So we'll just have to wait and see. Just be aware that SRBminer will no longer be able to mine Dynex in the future. So if you got your miner sitting on there, and then one day the switch finally flips, and again, it should be a phase out situation. But that day comes, and then your miners are sitting there not able to hash on Dynex. That's because you didn't pay attention. So keep an eye out. I'll link everything down below. And Yeti, thank you so much for your time.
No problem, buddy.